Hello, I'm your host, Charlie Whinham. Welcome to another edition of Lost Louisiana, What's in the Name, Part 5. Can you believe it? This is our 5th show on LPB, dedicated to finding out the origins of Louisiana towns with unusual names. My photographer, Vernada Woods, and I have traveled to 25 towns over the past several years, from Abita Springs to Zwolle. And we ask one simple question: how did that town get its name? It's interesting to see how that one basic inquiry becomes the cornerstone to some wonderful storytelling. We are coming to you from the historic town of Donaldsonville. This Mississippi River community, located between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, was once the capital of Louisiana. And in a little while, I'll tell you how Donaldsonville got its name. But we begin with a town in Acadia Parish named Rayne. Rayne's claim to fame? Well, it revolves around a cold-blooded animal lurking throughout the bayous. This isn't a dangerous creature, but rather quite a tasty one. The moment you're in the city of Rayne, Louisiana, it doesn't take long to detect a pattern of frogs. From the 13-foot aluminum frog named Monsieur Jacques to over 50 murals to the long-standing tradition of the Rayne Frog Festival. This town was built on frogs, but it wasn't named for the creature. So what's in a name, and how did Rayne, Louisiana get its name? Well, depending on who you ask around here, you could get 3 different stories. Meet Cheryl McCarthy and Tony Ollinger. They were born and raised here. The two carry the torch when it comes to town history. They have written 2 books, including one called Rayne, as well as another called Rayne's People and Places. The town could have been named after a passing railroad worker named B.W.L. Rayne when the Louisiana Western Railroad installed a telegraph switch here. There are no pictures of this mystery man, only a newspaper mention in the 1880s. It may be connected to a Robert Rayne, a prominent businessman who built the Rayne Methodist Church on St. Charles in New Orleans. But Tony and Cheryl think the town is named after a woman named Fanny Rayne. She married an area millionaire named John Jennings McComb. McComb made his money by inventing a mechanical cotton baler.
It's very intriguing to have 3 different options or 3 different versions of it. We believe that the one with John Jennings McComb, whose wife was Fanny Rayne, is the true version. With some of the historical research that Mr. Milo Debeval did back in the 60s and 70s, and we believe that is a true version with some of the documentation that we do have.
When the railroad came through, the closest town was a mile away, named Poupeville. And when the railroad didn't come to the town came to the railroad.
This marker, this brown pelican marker, actually is erected where the Poupeville started. Jules Poupeville had a store here along with J.D. Bernard, and this is where it all started, Poupeville. We've got this marked right here. They were all moved by oxen cart over to the center of town to Rayne Station. Okay. And as a matter of fact, this particular marker right here is the first post office. Well, it was in Jules Poupeville's store, and Joseph D. Bernard was the first postmaster here, who eventually became the first mayor of Rayne. So we've got all this wonderful stuff memorialized right here where it all started.
St. Joseph's Church relocated to Rayne as well, and the St. Joseph Cemetery is the only known graveyard with plots laid out in a north-south position. Traditionally, they lay east and west, metaphorically representing life, with the rising and setting of the sun. It is the only known Judeo-Christian cemetery in the world with this characteristic.
We're not real sure what happened. There's lots of stories about, grave diggers that may have tilted the bottle a little bit too much when it got started, but we eventually, by the time it was discovered, it was too late, and most of the cemeteries had been laid in this way, and now we actually have gained a claim in Ripley's Believe It or Not for being the only known cemetery facing north and south as opposed to east and west.
In the late 1800s, Rayne, Louisiana was the major exporter of big, juicy Louisiana frog legs. At that time, Jacques Weil and his brothers began using frog capital of the world in their marketing information. The delicacies were shipped to New Orleans restaurants, as well as Sardi's in New York.
And actually, it got one time where we had 3 frog companies in Rayne operating, and they would actually send runners out early in the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, to all the different areas like Chautauqua and Henderson, and the first one there could buy the frogs out the swamp. And back in the old days, they'd actually cut the frog legs off and sell them, and they would give we call the front legs and the front, to all the local people. They would just give them away because they had so many. And that's really the best part, and eat the frog is the most tender part.
What do you make out of them?
Make a courtbouillon or a sauce piquant. Either one of those do real well.
So starting with Donat Puchot, a Frenchman, and then the Jacques Weil family, they started exporting frogs both to restaurants and to universities for biological research, as a matter of fact.
In addition to putting frogs in barrels for nearly 100 years, the city of Rayne has also sent frogs into space.
So many people don't know that in 1970 we sent 2 bullfrogs into space as a part of the medical research. So we've actually had frog-onauts. The 2 frogs that were sent up into space were Pierre and Tinome. I have no idea who named them, but those are good Cajun names. We had Cajun frogs in space.
The send-off committee included then Congressman Edwin Edwards. The 2 bullfrogs spent 7 days in space on a NASA mission.
And the information that was relayed back to NASA was very instrumental in determining the effect of anti-gravity and weightlessness on a human's ears, because a frog's ears are very similar to a human's inner ear.
These days, this town of roughly 8,500 people has elevated the Louisiana bullfrog to new heights and every storyline imaginable. This mural in front of the city courthouse makes a good case that the folks in Rayne have a pretty good sense of humor when it comes to being the frog capital of the world. The murals are all around, including Depot Square, the site of the town's first railroad station.
The Depot Square is such an integral part of the city of Rayne, and it's only fitting that we have some of our murals here, right here at the Depot Square. Of course, this one is frogs partying with an accordion. You gotta love that. On the opposite side, when trains pass, they actually see a frog mural that says Bienvenue.
There's even a relatively new copper frog fountain sitting in the park, and in time, those copper frogs will turn green. And the annual Frog Festival has been a long-standing, make that jumping tradition, complete with frog races, a beauty pageant, as well as great food and music, all celebrating the life of this Acadian amphibian. You're just no good for me. So for Cheryl and Tony, they take their frogs and their history seriously, but not too seriously. Kermit the Frog is contradicted every day here. Why is that? Because it's easy being green.
People have a lot of pride in Rayne. You can see, look around here, it's a very clean city. Every year after year we win Cleanest City contests. It's just a real warm Louisiana community that a lot of people really love being in. It's hard for people to leave here. Sometimes people do go away, but they always tend to come back.
Because of Hurricanes Gustav and Ike, organizers had to reschedule the Frog Festival, which is usually held in the first weekend in September. The 36th annual celebration was held on the second weekend of November to rave reviews. This year's Frog Festival queen was Chelsea Richard. And if you're interested in buying the books on Rayne, written by Tony and Cheryl, you can find them on Amazon.com.